So it's good to keep recollecting citta as heart. It's only a rough estimation because there are different layers, different levels of it. But this is the level at which we investigate, and which so often drives our lives. It's the affective experience, being affected and responding. It's bound up with feeling. So whereas a word like mind tends to take us to more cerebral experiences, which certainly in respect to what we use, what moves us is felt. What moves us, what sits behind our thoughts and plans, are feeling. And in English usage, feeling covers three aspects, three khandhas, three aggregates. One is the meaning, or sanya, impression. This feels like this to me. Feels pretty suspicious to me. Feels pretty secure to me. That's sanya. And it's an intuitive meaning, impression. That factor, sanya aggregate. And dependent upon that sanya, there's a particular tone of agreeable or disagreeable, suspicious, disagreeable, interesting, agreeable, friendly, agreeable, uncertain, maybe disagreeable, open, agreeable, too open, nervous, frightened. And so these meanings trigger particular feeling. And feeling acts as the button that pushes an energy. Energy comes into what's called sankara aggregate, which is associated with volition, impulse, something that fires off. It may just fire off into the citta, if citta gets excited or depressed or confused, and further off it fires off into speech, thoughts, physical actions, and complex emotions. So you get this cascading effect. And so because the sankara themselves, as these kind of volitional qualities arise, we feel aroused, we feel excited, we feel disappointed, we feel nervous. That's the sankara. And that is then noticed, and that triggers another set of perceptions. I'm not wanted, I'm left out, there's something wrong with me. And that triggers off another set of feeling, disagreeable. And that sets off another level of sankaras. Try to be something else, change who you are, make things better, get rid of her, do this, do that. It triggers off another set of meanings. So this whole thing escalates into a cascade, an escalating cascade called proliferation, papancha. That generates a world of hostile, friendly, miserable, confusing objects. And really the world, the human world is based upon this. Prejudices, biases, loyalties, hostile vendettas, feuds carried on through generations. In some countries they're still repeating the war of 300 years ago when those people did that to my, and it's still going on, handed on, prejudice, biases, feuds and so forth. And sets up these tremendously hair-trigger situations, whereby a Palestinian can't look an Israeli in the face without feeling angry, or vice versa. They're two human beings, people. Yeah. And this is not just one nation, this is everywhere, even within nations, even within families. Can't talk to your aunt, still feel resentment about the sister-in-law, and it builds up. Because these emotional cascades get so dense, they solidify. And they solidify externally, enemies, passions, betrayal, and they solidify internally, feeling abused, feeling neglected, feeling pressurized, resentments. They don't just, when they solidify, they don't just become thoughts, they have a somatic effect. You get rigid, you get hot, get shaky, remembering things. Really shaky, remembering something. Agitated, weeping. There's this cascade effect. These are actually three different aggregates, so the Buddha's wisdom is able to discern how this process occurs. And so you experience something is meant, an impression lands, there is a feeling, some kind of resonance. But it doesn't have to be the sankara. There's the possibility there can be that, disappointing. There can be a gap. And in that gap, it's not nothing. In that gap, there's a experience of stable, clear knowing that's not cerebral. It's felt. Doesn't mean it's not a Vedana, but it's experienced as something stable, contented, settled, unrestricted. Like the absence of pressure. So the absence of fire, the absence of pressure. It's an absence that is also the most reliable presence. It's not, the words fall down, don't they? But you might reflect on those times when a powerful emotion moves through and pauses, and you get to the end of that and say, it's resolved. Even better when it's not just something that passes, but something you've seen skillfully seen the end of it. You've seen, that was where I was reactive. That's where, the hostility, the ill will was lodged, and I've relinquished it. And so that then the absence is not just the absence of something passing, but the absence of something actually being abandoned. We see where the thorn is. You don't want to keep sticking that thorn in your flesh. Stop doing it. So this is not just things passing in time, which can happen by itself, but something that requires applied wisdom. Notice, there can be an unpleasant feeling, and that movement to just pausing, giving self the choice, the citta, the choice to either go down that pathway again, or of agitation, or sit back in itself. We recognise there's a deeper layer or level of citta than the felt, the feeling, affective sense. There's a deeper layer. It's not you're just blanking out, suppressing, shrugging off, logically counteracting, telling yourself to pull yourself together, snap out of it, calm down, be quiet, shut up, get over it. More sankara. Well, but actually there's a place where the sankara doesn't bind. Still. You could say if you would explain it, but it's not really logical. There's some sort of recognition by wisdom that this feeling will not go away by acting upon it. There will not be a relief from that. It will return once again, as it does, like someone scratching a rash. Momentary relief, and the rash then gets more heated. You scratch it again, momentary relief, the rash gets hot again. And to not scratch the rash, and there's a better option. As citta sits back in itself. What has this to do with me? It certainly will be to do with me if there's an acting upon it. If the sankara triggers, shoots off, it certainly will be to do with me, because I will be formed through that. I will become a resentful. I will become a hurt. I will become an impassioned. I will become, certainly, because that's exactly how it happens. These sankharas, they're more familiarized, continually regenerated, become my pattern. That's what they call the mental formation. They're an activation. Citta sankara means the activation of the citta, but it also forms it. So you become hard-headed, you become narrow-minded. Those are interesting, aren't they? Even we use these words in English to define the shape. Broad-minded, narrow-minded, hard-hearted, soft-hearted, faint-hearted, brittle. That's becomes that. And then your habits, your behaviours follow on from that. One becomes hard-hearted, callous, indifferent. Cruelty occurs not through this, because when one becomes hard-hearted, the sense of even receptivity and sensitivity to others diminishes, because the heart is hardened. You don't even notice how dismissive, how cynical, how blunt and abrupt you are. You don't notice it, you don't feel it, because the heart is hardened. Soft-hearted sounds more attractive, but that's a problem too. Because you lose some spine. You just get, conflict averse, or unable to process, be with unpleasant feeling without being broken up, shattered by it. Can't bear to have people, disapprove of me. Well, you know. So really, all the sankaras, the shapings of the citta, they're all have the limitations of any shape. The beauty of it is, the heart is always shaped, but there can be a release from that into something that has no boundaries, no shape, unrestricted citta. Tathagata dwells with unrestricted citta, unrestricted by form, feeling, perception, sankaras, consciousness, defilement, aging, sickness, death. The 10 qualities of a Tathagata in this respect. But to say that the Buddhas don't feel anything, don't act in any way, don't have a form, don't age and die, well, something ages and dies. But it's really, in this expression, Tathagata, the Buddha is referring to the Tathagata citta. Yeah. It's just a language thing. You know, that unrestricted place, that unrestricted essence, you could say, or center, where the sankaras are not arising. They're not impulsive. Doesn't mean you can't act, but the action is very much determined, decided upon, supportive, responsive rather than reactive. Important to recognise this is the material we're really dealing with, what we call heart material, affective. The asava, the citta is released from the asava. This is another statement of liberation, these outflow tendencies. This is one of the definitions of the Arahant. Yeah. The citta is released from the asava through non-grasping, or through non-clinging, or through not taking a stand, or however you want to put it. It's a standard expression of liberation. So it's important to know what is liberated and where these asava occur. What is an asava anyway? These are flooding tendencies. They're sudden burst tendencies where the citta rushes out. The energy of the citta oozes out, rushes out. And this is why there is that compulsive, seemingly unstoppable rush between feeling and response. Asava link it. With the severing of that, the asava, that outflow stream is cut off. There isn't that rushing out of a feeling into an activation. And one of these asava, the asava of sensuality, that is the feeling that arises when the mind surveys the sense bases, picks up the meaning of glow, attractiveness. So, attention. It's another sankara. Sees where's the hot spot, pleasure or pain. That's irritating, that's annoying, go there. Fight with it. There's the hot spot of pleasure. Go for it. Get hold of it. Make more of it. Attention. It's what the mind determines as this means agreeable feeling is in that. And then attention goes to there, pulls that in, hot, heated up, activated, then the impulse. The sense data, sense fields, and in various levels, different qualities, not just crude, some of it is just refined, irritated by a colour of the wall. Go into a room and you've got to organise it. You can't stand it. You can't stand it. You can't stand to have that box with the lid hanging off it, and you've got to get agitated. You get like this. Doesn't look good. It looks messy. You've got to rush and do something with it. So these are not evil by any means. You've got to notice the tendencies. And what's helpful? Yes, it is helpful to have things carefully placed, in place, tidied. Helpful. But there's, you can be ironing out the waves of the sea, combing the grass, oiling the leaves on the trees, painting the sky to get it the right colour. Before you have to accept some things are just like that, scruffy, broken, bent. It's important to recognise this. Otherwise you start doing it to people. Just organise, sit straighter, could you? And you get this kind of, because it's better. Well, it's not better, it's just straighter. It's just cleaner, it's not better. And often cleaner is more desirable, but it's still not better, it's just cleaner. I like clean. But, eventually things just, you've got to live with dirt. The world is dirty, earth. And so you can, get obsessive about it otherwise. Material things. All things should make sense. Another thing. This is not logical, it doesn't make sense. It's not sorted out. Got to get the ends tied up on this project, or this idea, or this plan. Nice and that's better. No, it's not better, it's just neater. But some things you realise actually life is not that neat. Human beings definitely create order for all kinds of reasons. But then you look at it, most totalitarian regimes are very orderly. Nice shiny black boots. Everybody marching in step. Nice and tidy straight line, Better? Not really. Yeah. So you get the inner fascist comes along, sorting out the kitchen, sorting out the library, sorting out people. At what point has become, wait a minute, just look, What are you doing? You know? And then, of course, you realise you're living with the biggest unresolved scruffy heap in the world, which is your mind. And you go in there with the prunes and the shears and the scrubbing brush and the mop, and it doesn't get clean. It's just like that. It tidies itself up just by lessening the agitation, lessening the stress, lessening the compulsiveness, deepening the compassion, becoming more dispassionate. Things kind of start to release, unfold, and rather than a nice, tidy shape, we have an open non-shape. If you can cultivate that, then you can, all the loose ends and the unfinished things in the world, of which there are, can be sensed in that place, and what's the response? This bit will be helpful. That's the end of it. Because, this whole process is a learning process. If you refer to citta, at a certain point the penny drops. You're going to be very busy all the time, trying to tidy everything, sort everything, right every wrong, wage a tribunal over every injustice that's been done to you. It's going to be a very busy, intense affair. Do you want to live like that? Just Can you do that without just dumping or censoring or shrugging? Something, there's a place with, it doesn't profit me, it's not for my welfare to just go down that track. And there's a sense something opens that's very beautiful. What's this to me? What does this mean to me? Why do I have to get into all that? This is not, it's difficult to put it in words, express it. This is not dismissal, it's just resolution. Something's resolved. Been down that track 5,000 times in the last week. Do I need to go there again? And also the recognition something can be felt or sensed. A warm, steady, contented, open. I think, I'll stay here. Just stay here. The more you linger in that, the stronger, more effective, more apparent that becomes. First it's just a vague sense of halting or pausing. Like everything else, the mind is absorptive, and what at first is just basically a kind of a momentary gap before the next thing runs through, becomes an increasing dimension of its own, increasingly felt dimension of its own, dimension of dispassion. The beauty of this, it allows a huge amount of things to be felt, meanings to be sensed, because instead of the mind getting completely bunged up, clogged up and seized up by its reactions and overreactions, when those reactive tendencies are dispelled, we can be very sensitive. And responding from wisdom. This is the way it goes. These three khandhas, Sanya sankara vedana, or sanya vedana sanya sankara, feeling, tone of feeling, meaning or impression or perception or impression. Sankara, activation, response, reaction, formation, in terms of citta. These are to be sensed, felt, known, not dismissed, not trivialized. They are very important. And just to recognize that, we are encouraged to bring forth heart. The tradition is really based on it. Generosity is heart, faith is heart, community is heart, cooperation is heart. Every day we're receiving gratitude. The tradition is based on gratitude. Every day we're receiving people's gratitude, faith, every day. Sizable. That's heart. Based on faith. Every day we carry people's faith, we go forth in faith. Every day we pay respects to the triple gem. That's not a rational thing. You really make it into something meaningful. So you get the meaning of Tathagata, of Buddha, the world crosser. When you consider, like myself, born in North London in some little dumpy little tenement flat, going to a scruffy junior school and scruffy grammar schools and beatnik universities and dropouts, and then you find yourself in this, through tracking some intuition into Buddha lands, and you feel this incredible repository of beauty and love and compassion and wisdom. Wow, can you not feel a sense of gratitude and devotion to that? Can you remember it? We should do. It does us no credit if we don't recollect that. Where are we living? You want to live in the sense fields, time and place. You want to live in a history. You want to live in self-view. You want to live in me and mine. Or do you want to live in citta? Do you want to live in the benefits and the blessings of good karma? The good karma we've been touched by. Karma of other people. Good karma we've generated. Do you want to live in that? Or would you like to live in Walthamstow, Greenwich, God knows where? Do you want to live in a 5'10" body? Or whatever it is. Bones, sinews, or do you live in citta? Do you want to live in a personal history of this and that, and I don't like this, and I don't want that, and this happened to me and that did, or would you like to live in citta? Where's the capacities? Where's the possibilities? I think I'll take this one. I think I'd like to live in the place of gratitude, kindness, compassion and clarity. Start there. Work the rest of it out from there. Unravel the web of history, time, place, identity. And develop it. So it's not just where we've come to land, even recognizing where we land is important. So easy just to go back to history, identity. Well, really, where does citta sit? Comfortably, with assurance. Not an identity, it doesn't. Got to keep holding it together and quarrelling, debating, worrying, affirming. So this has to be developed. It's citta quality, heart qualities, through relinquishing what's unskillful, it brightens, cultivating, enriching what's skillful, it brightens, lingering, sensing more fully, so it becomes much more accessible, handling it carefully, so it becomes emollient, amenable, not pushing it around, not dumping it, not discarding it, handling it in this embodied way. Care, steadiness, respect. And it's going to open up. And this is the process we call samatha, calming, soothing. And it opens the tissues. And it's like putting a seized up muscle into hot water, or warm water, massaging it. It starts to open up. Softer. Then you can see more clearly within how this compacted mass, which at first seems so dense, as soon as something is, impression lands, you're immediately reacting. Hothead, flash. Immediately something is sensed, you're immediately reacting, because it's so tense and tightened up. Loosening up, you see, there's the impression, there's the feeling, and just sway on that. And that using this body as a way of derailing that trajectory of feeling to sankara, because what's felt in the citta is felt in the body. If you've sensitized, often the body itself is closed off. Generally, when people lose it, with rage or grief or fear, they lose their bodies. They just rush out into incoherent speech, and the body seizes up, fired up, locked up, and very dangerous. A person runs amok. They're not even aware of their bodies. They can get themselves killed in that panic state. If the emotions become so huge, the body just can't manage it anymore. The mind rushes out. There's extreme states. And then it's gone. And if you've cultivated that restraint, that referring to the body, you can feel that hitting of the nerves, and then that whole body drains the charge, the rush. Drains it. And empties. And that's a practice. Of course, to wish to do it, we have to also review certain psychologies, because people like getting swept away, getting fired up with passion. Something very attractive about it. It makes them going out of the body is an attractive proposition, because you don't feel things. So you get people fired up in rage, they're going to do crazy things, get themselves shot. They don't care. People fired up with passion lose their bodies. And rather, quite willing to do that because they believe so strongly in the mental state as being the sankara as being more important than life itself. I will die for this. And they will. People do. I will kill for this. People do. Because this opinion, this view, this impulse is much more important than life itself. Certainly more important than your life. Yeah, and people love passion because it fills, it gives you a form. You go to a rave, throw down a bunch of ecstasy, pills, ecstasy, and just fling your body around completely out of your head. Great, a great time. Love that passion. Because when that passion floods, the link between the feeling and perception is no hindrance at all, no obstacle, it just rushes, and you've formed in that. You suddenly become glorious, magnificent, brave, courageous, fantastic. It's like a drug. And people love that drug effect. Righteous, rage. We have to wean ourselves of that drug, the drug of passion. Because it's that which solidifies. And so this sense impact, karmasava, flood of sensuality, gives a richness, a flooding richness. We feel flooded with pleasant feeling. A flood of becoming. We feel flooded because suddenly we become something. We become supreme. We become clearly defined. We're not just an open space. We're definitely an entity, a thing, And that's this flood of becoming. The flood of ignorance or the asa of ignorance, we don't even recognize this is a problem. We just want to be it permanently. I want to be permanently in that high. Permanently become in that high state. And I'm definitely this. This is something to really see the hazard of. Citta can do this because basically citta is not restricted to a person, so if we begin to sense the welfare of others, maybe I don't want to become such a big deal. Maybe it feels more important for me to just flow along with what's good and right, more contented, more harmonious, more comfortable. I don't want to be the superstar, I don't want to be the villain, I don't want to be me who has to be different from everybody else. I don't want to be me with I just flow along. There's no passion in it. Of course we are all different in terms of what become. We don't want to make more of it. It just where's the harmony? And really, this is where we can get that turning, because human beings do live with others, do wish to live harmoniously. The average human being thinks, I can live harmoniously if I get rid of him, her, and those. Then I could live harmoniously without her and him and that one. And if he didn't do that, I'd live harmoniously. If they turned up for this time, I'd live very harmoniously. If I get everybody to be the way I want. So then I can live harmoniously. Not quite, no. It's more like you've got to let go of a few things. Accept the disorderly or the what and this and that, and then I can live harmoniously. It's not through all that filtering, but through the entering in, the citta sits back in itself. What has this to do with me? I do not quarrel with others. I don't demand of others. Therefore I live harmoniously. Not because everybody's the way I want them to be, because I don't have a thing about what I want them to be. That's how I live harmoniously. More like that, you know. And it's possible to do that when you have this firm basis, when the citta sits in itself clearly, fully enough. Think, I have this. What do I? You know, you have a treasure here. So then dispassion becomes possible, not through some kind of sterilization process or anesthetics or giving up on the heart, but through really maturing and seasoning the heart to be contented in itself, to turn back, to sit in itself. This is not selfish, because when the citta sits in itself, it is unrestricted. So its sense is not limited to just this physical body. This is another obvious fact, isn't it? Nobody's heart stays in this one room inside this body, does it? There's always people, places, events, past, future, people I regret, people I fond of, people I respect, people I have problems with. It's just a fact, isn't it? The heart is not restricted. It's restricted by its unresolved issues. Those resolved, the heart is really unrestricted. And the heart qualities of goodwill and compassion flow in an unrestricted way. And within, and that's that layer. Beneath that, or within that, is that open presence, knowingness. And said in the Dhammapada, we live happily amongst those who dislike us. A very stark statement. Not through barricades, but through, what's this got, to do with me? I feel compassion for your irritation, but can I look into that? Something to do with me? What can I address? No, this is the region to investigate between the feeling, the perception, and that reaction, response. And for your average person, it's probably going to get through a whole web of reacting to the reactivities, accumulated reactivities, accumulated formations of, where they're very hard, where they're very weak, where they're very sensitive, where they're insensitive. You gradually non-aversion to any of this. And so you can unravel the whole web, not through going through every topic, every piece of history, but just through the basic, what arises now, whatever it is in the web of the past, the future, them, her, him, what I was and what I would be. This is sankara. This means, this feels. Activate it. We had to deal with every issue, we'd be here a long time. So we deal with this. This is the deep wisdom of the Buddha. You get down to the roots where it's these aggregates. Seems kind of academic, but they're very real revelations by the Tathagata as to how citta gets itself ensnared and how through terminating this asava, this constant becoming it, there can be a release. So let's take some time for direct practice.